Good morning, everybody. Today we are joined by Dominic Lilly, Solutions Consultant at LastPass, and Fred Meyer, Senior Solutions Consultant, who has been with LastPass actually for over 15 years. So between them, Dominic and Fred work closely with organizations of all sizes to help improve password security, reduce risk from weak or reused credentials, and make access management simpler for both users and IT teams. In this session, they'll walk through how LastPass works in practice, common challenges they see day to day, and the practical steps that businesses can take to strengthen security without adding any friction for staff. So, a couple of ground rules. First of all, there is a Q&A box at the top of the screen, which you could use to enter any questions you may have throughout the session. Feel free to use that. I'll pop a message in there in just a moment. Your cameras and mics are off by default, so don't worry about that. And if we need to unmute you, then we can do that as well. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Dominic and Fred. Enjoy the session, everyone. Dominic and Fred, over to you.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Just give me a little thumbs up, or I'll come off the mic if we can see it all. We're all good. Fred, a little nod.
Oh, good. Why?
Beautiful. Cool. Right, so today's session, what we're going to do is we're going to run through why password managers have become essential. We've already had some lovely introductions from Isaac there, but just to recap, so I'm Dom, I'm Solution Consultant at LastPass. I'm going to run you through sort of the slides and the content, and then my lovely co-star Fred is going to run you through a little bit of a demo, essentially just highlighting the shared folders, some of the admin console, and then how it integrates with the wider security stack as well. A little bit of an agenda, although I have given some spoilers there. So what we're going to have a look at is why password managers have become essential for modern businesses, examples of common attack paths and how LastPass reduces the risk, how LastPass stores, encrypts and protects credentials, how LastPass supports your admins, which will be demonstrated by a lovely Fred, how it integrates with the wider security tools, again, be part of the demo, and then we'll finish up with a little bit of what to expect during a rollout. How do you have a successful rollout? Oh, this is a click through. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. So we've got some stats up on the screen. So just to sort of set the scene, we've got on average per person has 255 credentials. Normally that sort of catches people off guard a little bit. So what that actually means is that on average, people have 255 different places that they log in, right? So that's a lot of credentials across all of your different applications. If you are using, 20 characters, upper, lowercase, special characters, it's going to be very, very challenging to remember all of those credentials without a little bit of help. It leads us into our second stat there. So on average, 60% of people admit to reusing their credentials. And I think that should really say 60% of people admit to reusing their credentials, because if we've got over 200 and they're all strong and secure, I reckon there's probably more than 60% of people reusing them. And then that ties in with our third and final one there. So on average, 50% of people share their credentials at work, essentially. So what that also sort of illuminates for us there is that if people are reusing passwords and then they're also sharing them, you sort of lose track of now who's got access to what, right? So you've given somebody the key that may open more than one door. If they go on and then share that with somebody else as well, we've started to see a bit of a problem occurring, which leads us on to the elephant in the room there, which is the stat on the right-hand side. So 80% of data breaches are the result of a compromised login credential. One thing that we've been doing recently at LastPass is there's a website that allows you to then see the chats that hackers have been having with their victims. And essentially, you can see sort of the ransom process, and it goes on, and they give them a little bit of a breakdown then of what they could do to improve so that this wouldn't happen again in the future. And what you see coming up time and time after again is buying either credentials from the dark web or getting their credentials phished as well. So coming up, we'll have a little look at how to sort of mitigate that using LastPass. But we'll have a little look now at some of the challenges that organizations are facing. So we tied in at the beginning there with the 255. So having loads and loads of credentials, and they're all complex, as they all should be, because we're all super secure. It's quite difficult to then remember what to use to log into where, right? So you lose a little bit of productivity. Along with that, you've also got the IT burden as well. So if we're resetting a load of passwords because we've got so many and they're so secure and we can't remember them, it puts a lot of burden on our IT teams. And once again, that ties in with the onboarding and offboarding headache. How do we make sure that people aren't leaving with still access to our business applications? Or subsequently, how do we know that they're not leaving and taking their credentials with them so that we can't get in and use all of that mission critical data that fits within those apps as well? One of the other concerns that keeps popping up is non-secure sharing. So if we've got all these passwords and over 50% of people are sharing them within the business, how are they doing that if they don't have a secure solution? It's going to be in emails or WhatsApp messages or sticky notes. And then the final two is the shadow IT concerns, or one that sort of circles into that now is the shadow IT/shadow AI. How do we know what people are utilizing? How do we know what tools are being used that haven't been provisioned? Or for the AI side of things, how do we sort of limit the control to an AI tool that we trust, that we have a little bit more faith in, that we know has some stronger sort of security principles? And then that leads us nicely into the compliance requirements. So it's becoming more and more important that you need to take good care of people's sensitive information. How are you doing that? And how can you prove that that is actually happening? And we can pretty much sum up all of that lovely content with one sort of slide here from a little Simpsons memes. If we've got a really, really strong password and we go ahead and use it for multiple sites, it's still a pretty poor solution, right? So having those individual passwords for sites is what we're looking to do here. Where does LastPass come into the picture then? How can we help? So a couple of these are going to be sort of reiterated. I'm going to try not to beat the same drum over and over again. But for the risk mitigation, what we can do is we can clean up your credential hygiene and make it very, very difficult for you to then fall prey to phishing attacks and social attacks. Because if you don't know your password, it's very difficult to get phished for it. And at LastPass, we believe that it's a lot better to then not know your passwords because you don't necessarily need to. For regulatory compliance, I've got a little picture here that I haven't loaded in. There we go. For things like Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, LastPass is a fantastic tool because you need to be able to show that you're keeping credentials safe. And then you also need to prove that it is actually being done and being followed as well, especially for Cyber Essentials Plus. For credential sharing, Fred will illuminate this a little bit better when he gets into the demo, but what we provide you with is a secure way to share, and then it's all auditable as well. So you can then see who's got access to what, who's been changing those credentials, have they been passed on further, and then you've got a nice audit log as part of the admin console for that. For the shadow IT, we allow you to then see exactly what's being utilized within your tenant, and subsequently what's also not being utilized, right? Maybe you can look to consolidate some of the licenses, or maybe you've got processes in place that are simply not being followed, and you can see that because people aren't using those systems. And then simplification. It's at the bottom of the list, but I think it's probably one of the most important ones on this list, for the simple fact that when it comes to password management, adoption is key. So a password manager needs to be the point of least resistance. And as a result, we've designed a tool to be as simple as possible. With all that being said, we're one slide off the demo just to give Fred a little bit of warning and just a little bit about how LastPass works. So we've got a zero knowledge model, essentially meaning that we don't know what your passwords or master passwords are, so they are super safe. We're private by design, so we're going to keep all of your customers' data, end users' data, all of that is private. And then we've got industry tested compliance, meaning that we hold a whole array of different industry security certificates like ISO 27001, SOC 2, SOC 3, so on and so forth. And that rolls into you now, Fred. So I will hand it over to you. What he's going to do is run through a little bit of information around the sharing center, a little bit on the admin console showing the policies and reporting, and then how it integrates with the wider security tools.
Yes, thank you very much, Dominic. And before we start with the shared folders, I would like you to imagine that I'm a team manager that is responsible for getting my people into the tools that they need every day. And I want them to access those tools fast, securely, and without the typical back and forth, like, password does not work, copy and paste errors, outdated passwords, and all this, which, well, reduces the productivity of my team. So what I'm going to show you is exactly how LastPass makes this very painless. And in order to do so, I will first have to share my screen. Let's go. So I'm the team manager. You can see my screen here, and on the screen is my LastPass vault. As a team manager, I have access to a sharing center, and in these sharing centers, you can see different folders. And typically, you would have different folders for different business units. And then, for example, I want to share information with my, let's say, business operations team. I can see already quite a few elements that have been shared with them, and now I can change those and look, for example, for some information that is in my account, and if I would want to share my PayPal account with the group, then I can just simply do so. So now everybody within that group would have access to the PayPal account, and one of those would then just go into the browser, type in the address of, in this case, PayPal, and would try to log in, and then LastPass will automatically fill in the email address, the password, and also, if required, the TOTP code so that they can access this website and service in an easy way. So this is just to show you how easy I can share elements. What can sometimes help is, of course, to share elements with people that would only need a restricted access. And with that, I mean that for every folder, you can set up different permissions on a user or on a group level. And for those of you who have an IT background, it can also be used to use groups from, for example, your identity provider, meaning that Entra ID groups or Google Workspace groups. So with those folder admin controls, you can give read-only access, or for example, hide the passwords so that new employees don't have visibility into the passwords, and instead of having the choice to reveal them in LastPass, it would just automatically inject them on the website and service, and they cannot copy those passwords. You can also create new folders as a team manager to give access to other users or a smaller team. So if you're in sales, in finance, or in engineering, you would use those. As you can see, very easy and very intuitive to do. And as a user, it is even very simple. You just go to the website or service, and it would then provide you with the credentials in an automatic way. That also means that if you would change those passwords, they would automatically change for all the employees. So no more challenges with expired or changed passwords. So that also increases the productivity and the security. Let's have a look at the admin center. So the admin center is to control your LastPass environment, and it will give you an overview over the adoption and security of your LastPass deployment. So I'll give you a very quick tour of the dashboard. So what you can see here is the consumption of my licenses. I can also see the enrollment rate, so who has activated LastPass, and lastly, we can also see the active usage rate and how it develops over time. So with those metrics, you can exactly show to the business the adoption of LastPass and how it makes a difference. In the same way, you would also be able to see the security score of your LastPass deployment and identify users that have a low security score that can help you to identify users that could maybe need some cybersecurity training so that they could increase and know exactly why they should create strong and secure passwords instead of reusing that password over and over again. Now, let's have a look into the policies section. LastPass comes with over 100 policies, and with those, you can define strict rules. Let's say you want those Cyber Essential Plus certifications, or you have to follow those guidelines. Maybe you want to make sure that your passwords do follow complexity rules. So you can add here a master password complexity, and for those, you would be able to, for example, define how exactly users can create those passwords. And in case you don't want to use an additional password for LastPass and you're using an identity provider, you can also use the integration that we have with leading identity providers, including Entra ID, ADFS, Okta, OneLogin, Google Workspace, and Ping1. All of those are very easy to configure software connectors, which will allow you to fully manage your joiners, movers, leavers process, and also use the single sign-on functionality for logging into LastPass, which makes it very easy and frictionless for the users to log in, and on the other hand, giving you the granularity and the security to make sure that you centrally control the access to LastPass through your identity provider. Now, one last thing that is also important for compliance reasons is reporting. So in the reporting section, you can see all the changes that I have performed right now. As you have seen in our quick demo here, I have moved elements, I've added them and removed them, and all of those activities would be fully visible in an audit trail and in a log. And that allows me to identify not only which user has access to which information that is stored within LastPass, so you can actually identify the user that has, for example, connected to PayPal and paid that £2,000 bill for his washing machine. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so what you can see here is who has access to the information and did they modify it. And for those of you who already have a 360-degree view of those, you can also use this information in the advanced section and the integrations, and you could, for example, integrate them into your SIEM security solution, so into your incident event monitoring solution to have a full view of all the reportings that I've just shown you and to potentially create some alerts there. Most customers would use probably Splunk or Sentinel, but we also have APIs to make sure that you can also import them in other SIEM solutions. So just to summarize very quickly what we have seen. So we have looked at the adoption of the application, the security scores, reporting, which allows us to see how is it used. And there's also more security reports to identify, for example, when users have unresolved dark web monitoring alerts. That's what Dominic talked about a little bit earlier during this demo, during this call. Dark web monitoring will identify when credentials have leaked into the dark web, and this is often the main source of compromised accounts because cyber criminals get those and acquire those credentials and then try them out on other systems. So whether I'm a team manager it's trying to move my people faster, or an admin securing an entire organization, LastPass gives me the simplicity for users and control for IT, and that all in one platform. And with that said, Dominic, you have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, and I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Right. We all good, Fred? Back on the screen?
Absolutely.
Good. So just bringing this sort of presentation to a close then. So when it comes to doing a rollout, how do you then make it a success? So we've got a little 4-step process. One, starting with a clear rollout strategy. So breaking it down into what your metrics would be for you to determine, if I can get my words out, for you to determine success. So Fred eliminated the security score there, so you can then sort of set goals to then go ahead and increase that, or increase the amount of credentials that you have stored within your vaults, things like that, so you can clearly outline what success looks like. You've also got the ability to then pick champions as well, so that they'll sort of carry the team in the deployment and making sure that people feel comfortable using the tool. One thing that we haven't touched on is that LastPass offers a free product that more often than not amongst the company somebody has been using, and they're normally fantastic to then use as a champion for further deployment. And then preparing your environment, again, something that Fred touched on. So if you're bringing over your structure from your Microsoft environment or your Google environment, making sure that those teams and users are set up clearly so that you can then start to roll out shared folders with all the relevant credentials really, really quickly to hit the ground running. Training users for a smooth start. We have something called LastPass University, I believe. Although it sounds a little bit daunting, it's more sort of short form content, easy to consume. We're not going to, blow your brains out with a 15-minute video on how to save a password. It's very sort of easy going. And then the final one is communicate early and often. I'm sure, again, from what you've seen from Fred's demo, LastPass is an incredibly configurable tool. So if you've got something that's causing a little bit of friction, have a chat with your admins about it. More often than not, there's something you can do to make LastPass that path of least resistance when it comes to credentials and secure access. And with that, it brings us on to the questions, which I have one final meme for you all. And if you can't read that, it says, "I don't always think about cybersecurity, but when I do, it's too late." Isaac, do you have any questions?
Thanks very much, both of you. No questions from the chat, which means you've done a good job. I do have some questions that I get quite often from sort of customers and things that I've written down here. If you could take a stab at some of those, that'd be really useful, I think, for the people watching. Number one being for organizations early in their password management journey, what problems do you usually see first?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So some of the initial problems that you see when people start to think, yeah, we need a password manager, is around the movers and joiners leavers process. Being able to make sure that when people leave, you don't lose access to credentials. So within LastPass, the way that we sort of rectify that is it gives you the ability to pull credentials off that person and then put them either onto the admin or onto somebody else in a similar department, so you don't then lose access when people leave. And then also making sure that on day one, they've got access to everything that they need. And that ties in nicely to how the share center works. So movers, joiners, leavers around sort of access management is normally one of the first sort of signs that people need their password manager.
Real, thank you for that. The next one I had was, what does good password hygiene look like day to day in a real organization?
I'll let the lovely Fred take that one.
Well, it means eliminating potential security risks, and especially those that can be used for cyber criminals to put the foot in the door. And those are typically your dark web monitoring alerts. So as we have elaborated, there are websites that are tracking this information. There's a big focus, and all the groups try to acquire packages where with leaked data. So it is crucial for you to become aware that you have an issue, and LastPass can help with that and make your users aware that they do have weak or compromised passwords. And all this visibility typically helps to strengthen your help. And I think this brings us back to the picture that we see here on the screen. You don't want to be too late, and as such, you should have all the applications and tools available to you to make sure that you can identify those risks before it's too late.
Yeah, 100%. And the next one I had was sort of around deployment and things, and onboarding. So what do you reckon tends to be the biggest challenge during onboarding? Is it technology or user behavior?
From what we've seen, it's generally user behavior, right? The tech's pretty simple. It's quite easy to sort of get your head around. It's breaking people's habits and getting them sort of hands-on with the tool and making it sort of that path of least resistance, especially when you're working with, credentials over 20 characters with all the bells and whistles on them. It's a bit of a nightmare to even type those in, right? Even if you've got them saved in a special folder or you've got them on a post-it note, it's a bit annoying. So it's something that we recommend is putting policies in place to restrict the minimum requirements of a password, just so that LastPass is that single point of access, because it's the easiest way to get in, right? And that then sort of bends the user adoption more in your favor.
Thanks very much. I've got one more to ask, and you've kind of alluded to it there, but this comes up an awful lot with customers, which is how do you balance strong security like LastPass without slowing people down?
So during my demo, I've shown you the policies, and you have to find a balance. And this is a balance that depends on a lot of factors, but yeah, let me elaborate a little bit. So you will have to make a choice. You can have it very secure, but not very convenient for your users. I'll give you an example. I have to sign in every time that I want to paste an information. Well, that's very secure, but it slows me incredibly down. So you have to make a balance between security and usability at some point. What will help you are typically the guidelines from your company when it comes to the security. And then lastly, also the technology. We spoke about integrations into identity providers. LastPass also can use multi-factor authentication and biometry, which is very secure and also is convenient to use because, yeah, you're not going to forget your fingerprint or your head. So it is a balance that you have to do, and we will help with that. We also have recommendations. There's small little videos that explain how to use those, and so that you can find the best potential security settings for your environment and for your industry.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. That's been really informative there. Do either of you have anything else more you'd like to add before we wrap up?
That's it from my side. I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Well, all that's left to say really then is thank you everyone for attending this session today. If you'd like to see more events like this, you can visit our website, which is www.adm-computing.co.uk/events. That's www.adm-computing.co.uk/events. If you'd like to contact us for more information about LastPass or any of the products mentioned in our webinars, you can do so by calling us on 01227 473 500. That's 01227 473 500, or emailing us to sales@adm-computing.co.uk. That's sales@adm-computing.co.uk. Thanks everyone for joining us today. There will be a recording posted on our YouTube channel later on, which we can send out as well. Without further ado, thanks everyone again, and goodbye for now.